Welcome to my very first actual writing vlog. I wanted to share some of my process with you guys, or just kind of like a day in the life kind of thing, because I am working very hard on a specific project. It's a shorter project than my actual epic fantasy series that I'm working on. So yeah, that one is probably going to be out way faster for people to read, and I'm really excited about it. Aside from that, I've also been working on various other writing related projects in my life because I am in the middle of I think I'm getting into the next stage, but I've been in the like ash stage of like a phoenix lifespan for a hot minute, you know what I mean? And I feel like I'm kind of starting to come out of that a little bit, and I'm the like little naked pink, you know? So anyway, I wanted to share kind of what one of my typical days lately, for the last several months now, has looked like. I am not writing at the moment because I am about to go to a gig very shortly here, but I will definitely catch y'all up on some of my thoughts throughout the day when I have a second here and there, because I really want to talk to you guys specifically about writing and mental health, because I don't want to go into like crazy personal details or whatever, but like I definitely have struggled with chronic depression and anxiety for like my entire life. And writing is one of the things that has helped me the most. And yes, I know a lot of people talk about like journaling for your mental health, but that was something that never really worked for me personally. And I feel like I'm probably not alone in that. And so I wanted to talk about writing more, fantasy and fiction, and like how those kinds of things have helped me, or I feel like do still help me regularly, when it comes to my own emotions and my own thought processes, and trying to get out of those negative patterns that develop over years, right? In the brain from like trauma and like, well, this has been my only experience, so this is how it must be kind of things. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you guys about this, and I'll see y'all very soon. So when I say that journaling didn't really work for me, I hope you can hear me over the rain. But when I say that journaling never really worked for me, the reason is because for me, the idea of two reasons. One, I'm a little paranoid sometimes. I tried writing journals as a small child when I didn't really have super intense things to like be secretive about, but I still had like experiences where people would read it, and I think that kind of messed with me a bit. But on I don't know, I guess a deeper, even more personal level, the idea of having just like books of sad and angst and anger and all these traumatic experiences or whatever, in my life, like the idea of just having books and books of that sitting around, not only for anyone to potentially pick up and read, but for myself to go back and like read all of that. I know how my brain works, and even if I had, written good experiences down in those, a lot of good experiences at some point in life get kind of, if you've seen the movie, it's like what's it called? The Pixar movie Inside Out. But like the way that they describe it is really good. Like it's like a lot of happy memories. Like they come out like, this pretty yellow golden color. But then at a certain point when that's like in the past and it's never coming back, then it's tainted with the blue of sadness. And yes, those memories can still be really beautiful, but if I just have books of my like sadness and trauma and whatever else mixed with those happy golden blue memories, it just doesn't feel healing to me. It feels like I would just consistently be rehashing those things. And like, as someone who has tried things like therapy, that's what therapy felt like to me. Just consistently reopening the wound instead of trying to move forward. And this is my personal experience. Do whatever works for you, because everyone's brains function a little bit differently. So I'm just sharing a very personal perspective with y'all. I just want to be clear on that. But yeah, so that's why journaling never really worked for me. And I want to kind of go over how exactly, as I said, I want to go over how exactly writing fiction and fantasy has actually helped me. And just off the top of my head, over the last day or so that I've been, thinking about what I wanted to talk to you guys about in this video, there are three main things. And I'm going to get into that with you guys next. So, yeah. Hey fam, I'm back finally. So I wanted to go ahead and talk to you guys about those three, I guess maybe four different ways that writing fiction, specifically fantasy, has helped me with my depression. So, the first way is the obvious one. That's escapism. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, oh my god, escapism is not really a positive. I actually disagree. Escapism is only a negative if you forget to come home, forget to come back to the real world and face whatever issues you are trying to escape. But sometimes when you are stuck in the thick of a situation, and you're stuck in that loop that you just can't get out of, and your brain is just like, blah, but this, but everything sucks, blah, and you're just in that cycle, sometimes the best thing you can do is to just break away and fall into a fantasy book, if not write your own fantasy. It doesn't even have to make sense. You don't have to plan on sharing it with anyone ever, but it's a good way to just kind of, how do I get out of here? Now, the second way that I have personally noticed writing helped me is, how do I word this? So I actually noticed this when I started working on my own fantasy series, and it's worked in a couple different ways. One, sometimes when I'm writing dialogue or just in different character heads, it helps me to have almost this like internal dialogue going on, right? I mean, that's basically what it is. I'm just writing it down. And it doesn't matter if it's in a fantasy setting. Like a lot of the time there, whatever fantasy you might be talking about, there's going to be symbolism and metaphors and all kinds of stuff, right? So it doesn't really matter specifically what you're talking about. It doesn't have to be like your specific situation, but you can at the same time still almost have that dialogue with yourself and try to see things from a different perspective. Or maybe those two parts of your brain that just don't normally work well together, or you're just like, I can't think of the term for it right now, but you'll know what I'm talking about, where you have these two different perspectives and you don't know which one is right. You're not really for or against either, but you feel like, you just haven't settled on what you actually think or believe or whatever about it, right? So sometimes having those kind of conversations while I'm writing is really interesting and has actually helped me. Again, when you think about something a little bit differently, that can help with a lot of uncomfortable feelings. And by the same token, like, and keep in mind, I'm not talking about like, you don't have to come up with the worst villain ever and then like write yourself into like completely sympathizing with this horrible person that you've created. However, depending on the type of character you're writing, the situation in your story, whatever, it forces you to think about stuff in a different way that might help you. And I mean, especially if you choose to consciously do this, like not to share it with anyone or whatever, but just to consciously try to have these conversations in a like fictional kind of way. It'll kind of force you to think about things in a different way than you might have naturally, and then you can take that back to the real world with you when you come back and try to apply some of that empathy that you or sympathy that you have been able to stir up while writing. And I have one more to share with you. So, anyone who's been depressed knows that at some point in your depression, you will get to a state where it is difficult for you to do anything. You will get to that state where you just want to lay in bed in the dark. Nothing you watch or listen to or read or do is going to pull you out of that state until whatever the thing is for you that can usually, hopefully, pull you out of that state. But I have been there far too many times in my life, and I will say that writing for me, especially because I actually have goals to publish, and again, you don't have to publish anything. This is totally your choice if you decide to try out any of this advice at all. But for me personally, especially as someone who actually plans on publishing my work and I'm very serious about it, writing has actually been that thing that helps get me out of bed, that gets me up to do the things no matter how crappy I'm feeling. And writing is doing something. And if you get up and make yourself do something, and again, you're detaching from that cycle that you can't get out of in your head, it's of course better than nothing. You're being productive and you're being creative. And those can get those brain chemicals pumping that will actually like make you excited about things again. It might give you inspiration to do other stuff in life. You might get hungry again, like, or if you're one of those people like me that tends to eat too much, especially crappy stuff when you're sad, then maybe you'll actually refocus some of that energy in a healthy way instead of just eating yourself into a state of bloatation. So, and I wanted to go back for a quick note about the escapism thing, because one thing I did forget to mention is, yes, in a fantasy world, you might have bigger battles to face than you would seemingly in the real world, right? Or I don't even know if that's necessarily the right way to say it. If we're talking symbols and metaphors, that big boss at the end of your story could just be a metaphor for something like depression in your life, right? And so putting that into a fantasy kind of setting where you can be the hero that actually defeats your depression in that form, never underestimate the power of a good metaphor, the power of symbols on your brain. It's like a meditation. It's like you're doing internal work without having to hands-on touch those really painful parts of yourself, maybe, right? Like you can put it into something that's easier to understand, because no matter how big and bad that last boss is in the story that you're telling, if you put it into a fantasy world, you can still defeat it. And so if you can take that hope with you from whatever creation you happen to be working on, whatever you're writing, if you can take that and use it in your real life. And again, I'm not saying be completely detached from the real world, but you can use it as a tool to help you through the really difficult emotions. And yeah, I think that it could be really helpful for some people. And like I said, journaling, I don't want a bunch of books of my own sad laying around. No, thank you. But this way, you can work through your issues and then make some money on it later while people tell you how much they love your stories. Win win. So, yeah. Like I said, this was more of a vlog today. I just want to throw this out there. Everybody's brains are a little different. Some things that work for me are not necessarily going to work for you, and that's totally fine. This is just to, I don't know, maybe give you an idea. Maybe if you, like me, deal with these types of mental health struggles, then I don't know, try this out and stay strong because things do get better. Just something I like to remind myself all the time. Sometimes I don't even want to remind myself because you know how depression be. You just want to be like, nah, about everything. But something I do remind myself of frequently is that if I didn't experience the darkness that I have in my life, all the shadowy bits that I have in my life, I would, one, not be who I am today. And I think I'm pretty dope. I like myself. But two, I would not be able to recognize the good things when they happen either. And that for sure can be said to just about anyone, right? So stay strong. If you are sad, reach out to somebody you know and trust, that you know loves you and supports you, because no one should have to go through the sads alone. Because you're not alone. You're not. But if you feel that way, try writing about it. Have a conversation with yourself. You might be fascinated with what you learn. So I hope this was potentially helpful or at least interesting to whoever watches it. Thank you guys so much. Oh, one quick thing. If you check in the description link below, I've been doing this since I started making videos, but I actually do have a blog site and I am consciously trying to post on it more regularly. You can go on there and find out about my personal projects that I'm working on, at least bits and pieces, as well as see samples of some of my writing. I often like to do retellings of myths from the perspectives of different gods and goddesses that I really like. I so far have shared a few on there. I have a bunch more that I would like to share eventually. So yeah, if you're interested in seeing any of the things that I have written so far, feel free to check it out. Otherwise, I'd really appreciate it if you like, share, subscribe, and I will be back very soon with more content for you guys. Peace out.